Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. When the conduct of existence and circumstances towards the fulfillment of their purpose require our intervention, we will become rulers. When we must turn towards the material levels, the unalterable silence and the revealed essence dived into the hidden face of existence, we will be contemplative. When, in compliance with the laws, we free nuclei from the impure bonds that prevent them from expressing the archetype, the healer that we are will emerge. We will be a mirror if we reflect unalterably what the unique source pours on us. If austerity and balance qualify our existence, if we're able to watch over the adverse forces in us, and by defeating them, we offer the Creator the silent victory, the light of our eyes will reveal the warrior. By leading the elements from darkness to light, in-depth knowledge of cycle and ceremonies, preparing the paths of energy, the priest emerges. When genuine, formless knowledge is presented to our consciousness, the voice of the prophet will resound. Daniel Gagliardo. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 7. In certain stage of existence, a being perceives that it must march to the encounter of another reality. As long as the idea becomes stronger and more precise, it discovers that its existence exceeds the mere framework of personal convenience. Thus, the search becomes what internally really is, a response to the internal call. He begins to glimpse that going to the internal encounter requires entering a path. In the beginning, the path crosses areas that are familiar to the searcher. The more he strengthens himself in a test proposed by the path, the more distant is all ambition to exhaust it. When he reaches a certain stage on his path, he discovers that some time ago all that path offers to him is energy of transformation. He also perceives that he could not return to the stretches where what he knew gave him confidence and security. The light that was present in a worker's night has silently prepared him to aspire to the known. The light, without words, instructed him to the pilgrim consciousness. The light revealed to him that he, like all particles in evolution, must return to the source, the abode of the chosen. Turned into a pilgrim, he knows he belongs nowhere. He flows in a cycle of existence, sustaining his ceremonial. The light can now present itself more intensely to the pilgrim. He reverses it within himself, and he gives himself to his internal purifying actions. A percentage of the individuals that inhabit the surface of this planet walk the path. The footprints left by this and other pilgrims operate as symbols of what they will once walk. The intraterrestrial and extraterrestrial civilizations accompany the step of the pilgrim. The light they express is the same that he discovers in his interior. Thus, the consciousness of the pilgrim is immersed in a revelation of the unique life that encompasses everything. Our consciousness will gradually reduce the distance that separates us from the existence of cosmic collision. Symbolically speaking, to test the search in union with our inner core is the test of union with the cosmos. To make concrete what this call proposed to us, the being must assume an intense and disinterested work, reaching the understanding that his scales of values, as well as his tendency to seek personal benefit in every circumstances in which he is involved, is not essential. The consciousness that expresses the pulse of the superior existence knows that only by working for the benefit of all, a nucleus of life is faithful to the creative principle that gave it its origin. The consciousness that expresses the pulse of the superior existence knows that only by working for the benefit of the whole, a nucleus of life is faithful to the creative principle that gave its own origin. The dissuasive forces housed in the layer of the planetary psyche and inserted in a whole context of material life work so that the pilgrim does not concretize that which corresponds to him. The activity is forced on preventing the human ego from transforming its energy of separateness into individuality with conditions of interiorization and amalgamation. Somehow these forces try to take over the role of our own soul, but offering us the path of disintegration and the lack of knowledge of the unique purpose. Recognizing the multiple appearance and dynamics with which those forces interact and influence becomes fundamental to us. To perceive which areas of our personality offer them shelter is a work that demands boldness and humility, surrender and transcendence, detachment and attention, silence and synthesis, impersonality and desidentification. It is precisely the energy of desidentification that these forces continually attempt to neutralize in our minds. They are assured of their place in this planetary universe as long as human consciousness continues to identify with the play of the forces that these involutive parameters offer. The new patterns of life and behavior, which already resonate and are implanted in the context of this orb, will not need within the scope of the instruction the presence of these forces. Their presence will be reduced to a force field which will operate as a pull for certain stages of development of the cycles to be manifested. The pilgrim knows that the presence of these forces in a universe through which he walks today is part of what his action as a servant must attend. He knows that the response to the call involves simultaneously going to meet the needs and attending to them. Going from the attention of one need to another is that way takes on the meaning that each stretch must have. The pilgrims who cross the terrestrial desert know that the consequence of each action of these forces must first be overcome in themselves. To recognize the needs, they must pull out moment by moment the tares themselves so that that which is destined to bear fruit in them receives the light without interference. Taking care not to fall into the trap to think that we lead a correct life and to be satisfied with what we have achieved becomes of immense importance. This attitude offers decisive forces many hidden places in our personality, aspiring to transform ourselves and to change without stopping, generates the dynamic of the expansion of our consciousness. Sooner or later, this rhythm synchronizes with the rhythm of the inner identity of the being. As we have seen, our search, our response to the call, as well as the service which must unfailingly emerge as flow in us, depend on the potential to neutralize the action of the forces, which can generate satisfaction and identification with the evolutionary death that end they offer. Being able to neutralize these influences defines which Lord we are in a position to serve. As we have seen, our search, our response to the call, as well as the service, which must unfailingly emerge as a flow in us, depend on the potential to neutralize the action of the forces, which can generate satisfaction and identification with the evolutionary death and they offer. Being able to neutralize these influences defines which Lord we're in a position to serve. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 8. On one occasion, we received a letter that, due to its format, revealed that it was part of a chain. It seems the type of chain whose purpose is to achieve an evolutionary goal. We read the context of the letter. Its purpose had generated a range of different emotional movements in simultaneous recipients. The consistent energy referred us to the vibratory pattern of the movement of the masses. Under an apparent evolutionary purpose, we perceived with intensity the presence of instinctive forces. In our consciousness, we recognize that chain as a current of magical forces of a specific density. The talk and in open studies and lectures regarding the adverse results of handling and engaging with magical energies was present as a background sound. So many times we had directed consciousness and beings in a state of receptivity to the energetic inconvenience we feel when we ask for something to be done, when we transform our prayer into a request, when we do not know the reasons why unique life favors the existence of a conjuncture. So many times we had directed beings in a state of receptivity to the energetic inconvenience we feel when we ask for something to be done. So many times we had directed consciousness in a state of receptivity to the energetic inconvenience we feel when we ask for something to be done. When we transform our prayer into a request, we do not know the reasons why the unique life favors the existence of a conjuncture, even if it seems unfair, painful, or simply oblivious to our current convenience and preference. To stop asking, and therefore to stop waiting for the result of what is asked, becomes, and it is at this moment, a generalized test for a high percentage of humanity on the surface of the planet. The abandonment of the free will finds in this deep deep-rooted process a powerful obstacle to its realization. In those encounters where we could perceive with greater adjustment the distance that we still have to reduce in order to express the laws and to be one with them, this punctual profile of asking had not been openly addressed. The potential of that chain letter had not reached our consciousness, waiting to germinate as its magical purpose had foreseen. Evolutionary energies had derived this element to our hands so that it was included consciously in a treatment of this subject. In a way, to ask and to be left waiting for results is to remain indifferent to the proposal offered by the energy that governs the current stage of the planetary transition, is to ignore in our interior the resonance that the superior evolutionary law is amplifying. Our relationship with the sphere of material existence is based on the karmic possibility of choice, expectation, speculations, and a temporal principle created by a mind without receptivity to patterns of inner guidance. That chain potentiated the indifferences that the other dragged in its condition. That chain potentiated the interference that the other dragged its condition. That chain potentiated the interference that the other dragged in its condition. Someone, for some reason, who could ever have a foundation of certain positivity in his starting point, would climb the right, and even perhaps the duty, to drag other belong along. To drag other beings along, to ask the consciousness that governs everything to modify a situation which surely that same governing energy conducts and limits through the laws that form part of its expression. On one occasion, a student consulted us in a study about the phrase attributed to the Christ consciousness, "Ask, and it shall be given to you." That request was presented to us in the context of a study where we offered extension on asking within the frame of the energy of prayer. For each stage of human consciousness, according to its maturity and the level where it can affect its polarization, different realities, expressions of the essence of that phrase, corresponded. While in primary stages, the being understands by asking, choosing what the ego and the tendencies that came from the levels of the personalities believe they need to or wish to possess. In some elevated levels of their purification and asceticism, it is only to remind in a state of receptivity and acceptance of what the unique life proposes to live and assist. Asking, it becomes then to offer us to reflect without conditions that portion of the cosmic existence that corresponds to us, without differing from what the conduction of the same, in the knowledge of the unique purpose, disposes to reflect, utilizing our constitution and essence. Without differing from what the conduction of the same, in the knowledge of the unique purpose, disposes to reflect, utilizing our constitution and essence. The limited man is a limiting man. Without perceiving it, he proposes the limits of action and power for the development of which he usually defines as God. That which, by his will, proposed the expression of the whole, is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, omnipotent, omniscient, and potent. I'll come back to you later. We continue. During the previous cycle, we worked with the energy of the ego to a great extent, applied in an opposite direction to the base of Christ's teaching. Today, the vast majority of us, humans of the surface, continue to confirm that attitude. Christ pointed out the path of liberation by crossing the ethers with his unconditional surrender to the Supreme. "They will be done, Father, and not mine." They will be done, Father, and not mine. The will be done, Father, and not mine. Let your will be done, Father, not mine. It is the mirrors of our internal consciousness that Father can be found in heart. It is in the mirrors of our internal consciousness that Father can be found and heard, understood and obeyed. To allow our inner nuclei to flow in our concrete existence is to facilitate that it will be His will and not ours. To begin to experience this reality, so needed by the planetary consciousness, we must not exclude any opportunity. No circumstance is insignificant so that it does not serve as a field of manifestation of this offering of renunciation of our will, so that will be of the unique be done. No circumstance is insignificant. No circumstance is insignificant so that it does not serve as a field of manifestation of this offering of renunciation of our will, so that the will of the unique be done. However, neither it is so serious or difficult so that we excuse ourselves for being able to allow such treatment of our existence and its conjunctures. Preparing ourselves for this transformation requires us to define with humility who we really are and to accept the knowledge of transcending it. In short, to understand that if we are only today glimpsing what that phase urges us to undertake until a few moments ago, no more, we were only trying by all means to have our will done, Father, not yours. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 9. As this stage of transition progresses inexorably to its exhaustion, giving way to the interaction of energies that we could symbolically define as homologated, concerning the new planetary polarity, some beings fit certain expectations. Among them, one in particular was present at the time of preparing this note that keeps us related week by week. Its presence was perceived almost permanently in the talks given by our group in different places. Synthesizing the different variables of its expression, the following sentence exhibits its character punctually. Do we really have the time we need to make the changes that all this new knowledge suggests to human consciousness? At some point in our learning, we were told that it was inappropriate to answer one question with another. Today, more mature, we feel that there are no conditions for receiving, through whatever means and format, those impulses that should provide us with clarity and orientation. In this way, considering these impulses as an auxiliary, we see it an opportune to pose these other questions to that one. What time do we refer to? That of the indifferent or that of the daring? That of those who try to use their existence so that it becomes a tool of the evolutionary plan? Perhaps to the time of those others whose occupation and availability for the evolutionary life resembles those gymnastic practices so common in this culture, from 7 to 8 o'clock, 3 times a week, and after 2 years, a devitalized and deceitful paper which will be hung on a chosen wall, will credit them to the same with other spiritualized naive people. How long are we waiting to reach attainment and consummation of that being who, perceiving the steps that are possibly the closest to the energy of his own soul, does not decide to make them concrete? Or that of the other one who, even without any reference in his consciousness other than the glimpse that the known and conventional is skeleton of the current surface civilization, offers himself with relative understanding to be permitted by the unknown with tranquility and without expectations. Endless questions could line up in our consciousness. If we could be sufficiently attentive to those we have proposed, we could, by their very incision, bring our meeting today to a close and devote our energy to an exercise of reflection on them. It is also true that when we can share this reflective energy and at the same time fulfill the agreement made with this means of communication, of the indifferent ones, it is not just time that which would not be sufficient. Of those, nothing would serve to implant a new state of consciousness on the surface of this planet. Their time only serves to confirm what no longer holds the essence. Using related terms, we could say, at the risk of being misinterpreted by purely chronicle minds, that the time of the lukewarm is anachronistic. It is not linked to the cycle of the inner life. Our evolutionary inability to perceive the unique order of existence has mounted an invention on the mental level. The mind invented chronological energy. It diverted the incessant pulsing of reality without beginning or end. It fractioned the consecutive of existence due to the material conditions where it was encapsulated. If today we're invited to drink from the fountain, we will have the opportunity to walk to it and quench our ancestral thirst. In terms of chronological energy, we will not lack a second to realize what concerns us evolutionarily. The law has the power to install the effects. The merchant it offers for the fulfillment of the steps to be achieved exceeds the chronological illusion and is defined in the activation and exploration of cycles and stages. When our consciousness discovers that treasure to be reached, it enters the pulse of a cycle. It is not a chronological opportunity, and its temperamental and cyclotimic measurements that are being offered to us. It is the assimilation and use of the circulating energy in a state of conductivity foreseen for the realization of those stages. It is not time that it's offered to each of us to fulfill the transformation we owe to the unique life. We are urged to resolve the fulfillment of our participation within individual cycles contained in an overall cycle activated for humanity on the surface of this planet. Whoever incessantly, boldly and selfishly works on his transformation will live with ease and tranquility, what others, deviated from the inner purpose, will define as a race against the clock. To ask ourselves if we are still in time to change, it is to dismiss the reality of essence, is to believe that chronological energy regulates the phases of human asceticism, or at least the influence. When the internal nuclei know that the being will not have time, in brackets, to satisfactorily undertake an evolutionary stage during an incarnation, they know it in a relation to the impossibility of concretizing the development of the cycle. From that point of view, it is that certain beings become unredeemable in different levels of consciousness. By an analogous process, also like this, the hierarchy recognizes such a principle to the same inner nuclei. It is in convergence with these spiritual concerns that we will be most helped in understanding the energy that we differentiate as time. And although for now it is difficult for us to understand it, it is with the intelligent management of this so-called time that the illusion it represents will be overcome, and its place will be unequivocally occupied by the fulfillment of cycles and stages. In a more and more profound way, we will perceive everything that happens as a single reality, which our current limitation breaks down into past, present, and future. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 10. 2 weeks ago, among some received letters, a person described to us a series of tests he was going through. The writing of the letter revealed the rejection of this being towards the circumstances he was living. As he read, the word misunderstanding resonated strongly. The person was not understanding that what was happening to him was the most favorable for his consciousness. His inner nucleus had prophesied those events to break with a particular state of inertia and crystallization. Certain comments within those lines allowed us to observe an individual who, in one way or another, had always tried to involve other beings in the resolution of his conflicts and problems. The last paragraphs of that letter told us that given our commitment to the evolution of humanity and the service characteristics of our task, we were asked to do something to mitigate this situation. Moreover, among other actions, it was suggested that we should not forget to ask the hierarchy in our prayers to alleviate so many unjustly suffered problems. In this story, two energies stand out. One, like the non-acceptance of what happens to us. The other one is to ask to that which we consider capable of governing our existence not to allow the continuation of what causes us so much displeasure and discomfort, although it is unequivocally attributed to us. One of the experiences for these times is the acceptance of these so-called tests, even with a sufficient degree of openness to express energies of deep appreciation for the opportunity received through them. Within this context, ceasing to ask also become a test for the beings. Accepting what the creative consciousness has for our existence and not asking it to excuse us from bearing what it has for our purification and growth is equivalent to gradually deactivating our dependence on the law of material karma. For this to begin to be carried out by us, we must take into account not involving others in the treatment of our process and trails. When the ego can generate adequate energy of retention and control in this sense, it stops being, to a significant degree, a polluting focus. From the successive stages, the presence of a being in certain areas and circumstances is part of a range of elements provided for the action of certain energies. The ability to be open to the internal impulses is fundamental to face our tests. These impulses, called liberation impulses, play an important role in this field. As their flow increases, the tenor and the character of the test are modified. The energies that oppose this aspect are defined as identification impulses. This identification is defined as such concerning the energies of the densest levels to the games proposed by the psychic layer. For inner guidance to emerge, our thoughts, feelings, and actions must lose their usual value. This becomes then a fundamental test of character in our asceticism. Winning the test is not the quality of our ego. In the beginning, when our understanding is limited to the world of the apparent and not to the superficial elevation of events, the overcoming of this has a particular character on the levels of the personality. While we respond to the current that elevates us above the level of illusion, we move on to recognize who is really the architect of overcoming every test. We begin to reverence that which has the power to transcend any conditioning and which we discover emerging from within us. When this inner energy can act with sufficient fluidity during the experience of the trail, we become instruments to facilitate the path of other beings. Already in those instances, transformed into pioneers, we overcome in ourselves the obstacles that others will have to face later on. That energy of transcendence, as a register, will remain installed and available in the conductive way. The tests serve for us to improve our internal tuning. They are the tool for overcoming the material sphere of existence. Through them, we learn to recognize the play of decisive forces. We understand more deeply the power of interaction that they can have over us. We all need to evolve, and the tests come from this need. The law of karma and our internal nuclei bring the character of this test closer to our context and in perfect relation to the available potential. In the horizon of this humanity, new, unprecedented events are glimpsed. These events do not need any classification or labeling from us on this occasion. When we mention them as unknown, we are referring to them as the energy that for the human consciousness lacks evidence. The test that we must transcend today will allow us, in a not too distant future, to be before these unknown energies with balance. This does not mean in any way that once those moments have arrived, we should not face tests of a certain tenor. The characteristics and vibration of a test are defined by the evolutionary degree reached by our consciousness. The retrograde forces, a powerful component in the initial stages of the tests, due to our identification with them, give way to another element that will interact with the impulses of liberation. Tests should not be solved or shunned. To be before what we do not know, without knowing when it will come and how it will come, taking care of it with impassivity, it is an exercise of attention to the internal present, which in reality should be nothing more than a profound and infinite treatment of assistance to the unalterable essence that dwells in us. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 11. All levels of existence and consciousness need evolutionary parameters for their expression. As the monad's awakening becomes a reality for more individuals on this planet, the possibility of a more mature expression of the hierarchical or cosmic lineages begins to be perceived. These lineages become extensions of the archetypical energies. The vibratory patterns that they channel are fundamental in the work of the leading human consciousness towards the fulfillment of the unique purpose of existence. When the monada, in brackets, spirit, enters the human kingdom, the contact with the energetic pattern that we define here as a hierarchical lineage begins. The monadous awakening is the crucial stage of the individual to begin to perceive the type of energies to be expressed in the material realm. The hierarchical lineages become the framework for a particular manifestation of the being's existence. The participation of one or another lineage in the context of a planetary life is determined by the cycle that the humanity is going through and the energies that must be installed. The energy of the cosmic symbols and signs is the source that operates through these elements. Like the rays, the lineage is a catalyst for the irradiation of these signs. The monad within its evolution must arrive at the recognition of its own lineage. It is only in that circumstances that its union with the hierarchy and with the energies of its own regent passes to a high degree of concreteness. The denomination of these tools, and hence the energies they express, may vary from one sector of cosmic or universal existence to another. For the present human consciousness, the revealed lineage are 7: the rulers, the warriors, the healers, the mirrors, the contemplatives, the priests, and the sage and prophets. The energy uses the lineages to resolve the supply of certain elements in the existence of the concrete levels. That which the evolutionary plan proposed to be achieved today, the foundation of future stages, can only be carried out by the self convoked, by means of the energies liberated through them. The capacity to serve in each one of us is intimately related to the fluidity with which we express its essence. This does not mean that we should constantly recognizing with which of them we are in intimate and internal relationship. By allowing the manifestation of our inner nuclei with a certain quality, the essence of those lineages that must express themselves will do so. As all rays contain the essence of others, each cosmic lineage includes and contains the rest of them. When we work profoundly with the energy that one of them represents, we are ready to develop the same with each of the others. Only with intuitive and spiritual awakening we can constantly relate to what these lineages represent. At some point, all beings arrive at the synthesis of these hierarchical energies. Because they proceed as energies from superior levels of the universal consciousness, we must dispense of the terms we use to define them for their understanding. Each and every one of the elements that are revealed to us in these times has no other function than to facilitate our insertion into a new pattern of existence. The demonizations of these lineages are given by terms that in general have a certain burden for our consciousness when we speak of rulers, as in warriors. Of the wise and prophets, or of the contemplatives, we are talking about the essence of those archetypal profiles and not about the deformation, the deviation, and the degradation of them, so well known in our civilization on the surface of the planet. A being could not move forward in its evolutionary path if it does not manage to express the synthesis of these lineages within the punctual framework of certain cycles. The monad cannot complete the final phases of its experience in the cosmic physical universe if the bodies which it uses on that level of existence have not achieved sufficient flexibility in the flow of the energies inherent in these parameters. The balance and deep cultivation of the right attitude will allow us to express the energy of the lineage most appropriate to each situation that the unique life offers to us. We will become rulers when we conduct of existence and circumstances towards the fulfillment of their purpose require our intervention. We will be contemplative when we must turn towards the material levels, the unalterable silence and the revealed essence, diving into the hidden faces of existence. The healer that we are, we will emerge when, in compliance with the laws, we free nuclei from the impure bonds that prevent them from expressing the archetype. We will be a mirror if we reflect unalterably what the unique source pours on us. If austerity and balance qualify our existence, if we are able to watch over the adverse forces in us and by defeating them, we offer the Creator the silent victory, the light of our eyes will reveal the warrior. By leading the elements from darkness to light, in-depth knowledge of cycle and ceremonies, preparing the paths of energy, the priest will emerge. When genuine, formless knowledge is present to our consciousness, the voice of the prophet will resonate. When the time comes where the beings of this planet, with a united consciousness and a new genetic code, can express the elevated energies of these hierarchical lineages, the purpose to be achieved by this humanity, by the planetary consciousness, and by the solar system will receive essential and unprecedented assistance. Notes for the Planetary Transition and the Law of Return by Daniel Gagliardo. Notebook 2. Note 12. While we were preparing to write this article for the newspaper, we were simultaneously induced to observe how many apparently technical impediments arose for these writings to reach their destination. The reason for these writings was never other than to offer energies of enlightenment to those who could tune in to them. These energies have their reason for being in an order which occultly outlines the evolution of every particle and its insertion in these universes. And its insertion in the universes. This source of order is no stranger to any sector of planetary life, nor are the involutive forces in different degrees of manifestation. One of the tests to which we are submitted with greater assiduity is to find a way of not separating us from that which governs the existence. Those impediments which from one country to another, from one sector of planetary life to another, tried to block a series of impulses which were destined to be received by a group of beings, did not come from the Regency. Did not come from that Regency. Our task, then beyond serving as intermediaries, in the configuration of those impulses consisted of not losing the harmony with the source of the inner order. If the writings had to arrive to whom it corresponded that they should arrive, it will be by not interrupting the connection with the conduct of existence and by the order that allows its manifestation. What else do these writings postulate than not to stop searching intensely for the inner source? The greater the collapse and disorder where this search by each of us take place, the greater the expenditure of energies that will be needed to reinstall the planetary balance at the end of this transition. If we manage to take care of the action of these opposing forces in each of us, The karmic healing that emerges as necessary will be in accordance with this carried out task. If we manage to take care of the action of these opposing forces in each one of us, the karmic healing that emerges as necessary will be in accordance with this carried out task. If the material arrives in time and for those for whom it was intended, it will need guardians in which of the courses and stages. Those guardians, according to the evolutionary level that corresponds to them, would have to find a way to confront these disordered forces. In one way or another, and in spite of the fact that great impulses are poured on the human being today, the interference so that they do not prosper is extremely powerful. How much mental and emotional material we offer for the modeling of these interferences. We do not know the inertia power of our most appreciated ideas in different fields. How much mental energy, which does not have the slightest possibility of evolutionary leading our existence, how much purely theoretical and hypothetical energy incapable of bringing us closer to an evolutionary exit. Ideas that do not have the inner fire, ideas that transmit the cold of the superficial, lacking the breath of the cosmic mind. Work of the Titans carried out by those who silently offer themselves to be fecundated by the archetypes. The ideas which come from the fecundation are torches which illuminate the external counterpart of the existence. In these weekly meetings, we dive into the wake of these archetypical sources. We try to glimpse that contextual words cannot offer, but neither can they hide, when their reason for attending a conjuncture is foreign to the merely personal ambitions and purposes. Our highest level of existence is not the mental level, although a large percentage of the humanity which we are part of confirm the contrary and intentionally feeds the energies of that sphere. Confirms the contrary and intentionally feed the energy of that sphere. This attitude demonstrates the separation with human archetype. It is, above all other elements, the higher index of indication of the insanity of this humanity. By this parameter, the loss of capacity of expression of archetypical energy is that we can accompany that concept, that they are practically. By this parameter, the loss of capacity of expression on archetypal energies is that we can accompany that concept, that is saying that practically there are no healthy beings on this planet. Doing these writings has certain interesting differences with respect to giving a talk to a number of people in an auditorium. Doing these writings has certain interesting differences with respect to giving a talk to a number of people in an auditorium or giving our written or recorded material to anyone interested in it. Those who come to our talks in general usually know what energies they will be in contact with. Those who request the recordings for their study and reflection are, in many cases, aware of certain elements and come in search of them. Writing for a journal is an opportunity of great breadth that is offered to us. These notes will not only reach those who, within a certain intensity, are in tune with their essence, but are made available to the whole range of human consciousness represented by the inhabitants of this area of the planet. This is the work which today carries the energy in this planetary universe, to make available by all available means a reality that is destined for the whole of humanity. There will be no lack of those who keep each of these interventions to review their contact in moments where their inner openness makes it appropriate. Nor will there be those who will turn over a new leaf, still distracted and absent from the inner search, or with a gesture of disgust for the things that are published and spread today. Each week, while that order that governs everything continues to protect the emergence of each knot, we will try to reflect and transmit it. On the other hand, surely among those who define themselves with the term readers, there will be powerful mirrors in the conditions to reflect that reality, so that it continues with the fulfillment of the purpose that sustains it.